Good morning. It's Thursday, the 7th of August. It's 10 o'clock, and welcome to new 2025 DrayTek offering in 45 minutes. Why DrayTek? I'm Peter, and joining me on the webinar today is Sami.
Hello, everyone.
Looking at the agenda, I think it's always good to talk about why DrayTek and just look at some of the legacy around DrayTek. We've been around some time. Then we're going to cover off the different hardware categories, routers, switches, access points, and of course, central management. That's also been with us some time. Live Q&A and a close at the end. And just something to remember, there is actually a promotion today, but you need to stick around to the end to see what the offer is on the ACS3. So why DrayTek? Let's look at the history. And these dates are really important. Founded in 1997 by Calvin May and a talented group of engineers, and there's some urban myths around where the engineers came from, but ultimately products designed, manufacturers and sold by engineers. And the timeline's really interesting as well. Founded in 1997, the first product was released in 1998, the world's first ISDN terminal adapter. Let's just pause that for a second. But let's look at some of the other key moments through DrayTek's history. 2004, we see the first multi-WAN load balancing router in 2004, where you could have multiple WANs on a router. That's a first. 2011, DrayTek launched the first version of ACS, where you can now manage routers and access points remotely. 2017 was the release of our first LTE 4G router and switches. First failover router 4G. We've been doing this some time. We're now in 2025. We released this in 2017. Fast forward to where we are today, and there are now 5 cellular failover devices in the range, with more to follow. It's all about quality. Formed by a team of talented engineers, DrayTek own all the intellectual property to the products. DrayTek do not make products for anybody else. And yes, I have worked for other networking vendors, and yes, I've seen the production lines with many different brands on there. DrayTek only make DrayTek products. In fact, all the code that's on the switches, the routers, and the access points is written by DrayTek, and it's called Drayos. From a testing perspective, components are tested, pre-manufacture and assembly, a lot of R&D go into this, with random testing during production, and even random selection during packaging and pre-shipment to test the products. And whilst we've noted here heat extreme testing, we have cold testing, noise testing, and of course, testing of our award-winning Wi-Fi performance. And the UK is the most established region from a DrayTek perspective. Remember those dates? Formed in 1997. First product, the ISDN adapter, in 1998. The UK region was established in 1998. DrayTek UK has been in the UK and Ireland for 28 years. That is a long time. And that is why DrayTek, as an entity in the UK, is responsible for 65% of DrayTek Taiwan's worldwide sales. What does that mean to you? That means that we have influence in the product roadmap. From an end customer perspective, whilst we know that you love the routers, you love the switches and the access points, there may be a specific feature you want to talk to us about. And we've done this many, many times, which you'll see in subsequent slides when we talk about customers. We have over 12,000 customers in the UK, well over 3,500 resellers, and it's growing every day. With sales offices in London, Harrogate. I'm based in Harrogate. I am a northern person, if you cannot tell by now by my accent, with main warehousing in Castleford and Ireland. Let's talk about awards. I guess all vendors talk about awards for different reasons, but I'm particularly proud of these. And yes, that is me accepting the CRN Channel Awards in 2023. Not my best picture, I must admit. But we have a burgeoning cabinet full of awards. But if there's a consistent thing that comes through every time we get an award, it's not based on worldwide shipments of the millions of devices that we sell every year. It's based on key attributes: performance, security, reliability, and quality. When we look at our customer reviews and our CSAT scores, our overall rating is 95%, and 99% of customers would buy again. Looking at some of our customers, and I have noticed this slide has changed just for me, because when we look at our key customers, obviously we're present in retail. It's a very big vertical for us, but also government, public sector, and private sector. My favorite subject is food. And normally this slide is covered in food retailers. So it's good to see a mix on here, and it's good to see some opportunities where I've been heavily involved. Hey, great, we've still got Greg's on there, one of my favorites. And the reason for this is, as you can imagine, lots of these customers have multi-sites. And what they tend to do is, when they're developing a new network infrastructure rollout, they will have a beta site where it's all connected and the DrayTek routers, switches and access points go in. And once that passes, network infrastructure team are happy. It's then rolled out to all the other stores or franchises. So for example, it's a few years ago now, but Pizza Hut, 2,500 sites. Some of them not up to 2,500 sites, some are less. Alzheimer's Society, slightly less. But the big one really for us is National Lottery. For those people that didn't know, we won National Lottery last year. They're all using failover routers, which will be obvious as we get into subsequent slides. 55,000 DrayTek routers installed in the National Lottery live. And if they lose their WAN, it's not a problem. It will just fail over. So let's look at what happened over previous years. And I'm going to relate to a time that we probably want to forget, but it highlighted a number of problems. But let's look at connectivity, how it was and how it's developing. So this slide is a few years old, but it's still relevant. So we have ADSL, copper wires from the exchange to the cabinet, copper wires to the premises. And even though the PSTN switch off is next year, Sagia is widely available, and all it needs is a pair of copper wires. It doesn't need a landline. It can even use fiber. So we obviously have products for this, but a speed of up to 24 meg, and then it's still out there. My mother still uses ADSL. Fiber to the cabinet from the exchange, fiber to the cabinet on your street corner. Yes, that green cabinet with fans running. That's your fiber cabinet. And then copper to the house. And this is what I had a couple of years ago. I achieved probably 70 meg. From a speed perspective, and then underneath in brackets, it says 330 meg. That was GFast. GFast implementation was a few years ago now. And to actually achieve 330 meg, there were a number of caveats that you had to have. One of them was distance to the exchange. So that was always going to be a problem. And by the time it started to roll out, I think there was a realization by OpenReach that actually moving straight to fiber would be a better idea. But don't worry, we still have a couple of products in the range that operate on GFast. So if you've got a GFast connection, we can still support you. And then where we are today and really how things have changed. As I said previously, I had probably 60 meg on VDSL for the last couple of years. I started with 250 meg FTTP, half a gig, and now I'm at a gig. And obviously I'm using DrayTek products, so the throughput is fantastic. But that is fiber right through. And I never believed you could run a fiber from a telegraph pole, but apparently you can. And it looks great. So that was then. I'm talking about the after effects post-lockdown. In particular, Eat Out to Help Out, which we all do remember. We also all remember queuing on websites to place orders at B&Q and Wix because everybody was building bars and sheds in the garden. But lockdown really highlighted issues with WAN reliability. because obviously engineers couldn't go out. So if customers' WAN went down, what are you going to do? It's a massive problem. And also because just about everybody was building pergolas outside of the premises and queuing stations and everything else, the Wi-Fi wouldn't reach because it was in-store only. And even when it was in-store, did it actually work? We had mixed vendor estates. For those people then that could actually interrogate the devices remotely, the problem was you may have a DrayTek router and somebody else's switch. So all of a sudden you're looking at 2 or 3 different panes of glass. So where we are today and the way things have moved, multi-WAN is becoming the standard. But you know from my previous slides that multi-WAN has been around with DrayTek for many, many years. And our failover options are plenty. 4G, 5G, we have dual WAN products, so you can have 2 FTTP connections in there, plus mobile, dual SIM embedded, load balancing, so the connections are always active, not just in a failover mode. And the router will give you the best performance based upon the load balancing of those connections. And because the router's monitoring this, you are looking at seconds from a failover perspective. It's not going to sit there and think about it and run some tests for 30 seconds or a minute. It's immediate. Managed Wi-Fi, customers have now moved to this where they have 8 access points around a building, could be extended to the car park with external access points, multi-gig connectivity. That's something that's coming through today, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. All of a sudden, with the technology that we have today, 1 gig may not be fast enough for the direction that we're going in. And then estate visibility, getting products, in our case, onto ACS, and being able to provision products before they actually go out to customers. So all the customer has to do is plug it in, and it will connect automatically to ACS3, download the latest firmware and configuration, and you're done. So that's my about DrayTek. I'm now going to hand over to Sami, who's going to cover key highlights within the DrayTek router range. Hi, Sami.
Thank you, Peter. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Sami. I'll be taking you guys through the DrayTek routers and the key routers that we sell within the DrayTek line. So currently, we sell two different classes of products. So we currently sell the business class as well as the SOHO and modem class. I will be starting off with the business class, which is aimed towards SMBs and enterprises, and I'll just be talking you through some of the products that we have here. So I'll be starting off with our 2 sister products, the 2865 and the Vigor 2927. So these are our multi-WAN routers, with the Vigor 2865 having a 1 DSL connection and 1 FTTP connection, as well as multiple different features, including 32 VPN tunnels, load balancing, as well as extensive firewall features, as well as including like bandwidth management and quality of service. The Vigor 2927, while nearly identical to the Vigor 2865, has just a different interface due to the fact that it has, instead of it having 1 FTTC connection and 1 FTTP, instead it has 2 FTTP gigabit WAN connections, allowing for you to have load balancing leading up to 1.8 gigabit per second speeds. And this device also includes up to 50 VPN tunnels, and both of these devices have the capability of configuring a hotspot web portal to even allow you to set up guest access through a clean and easy interface for clients to just connect to, and then just connect to the guest network like that. All of our DrayTek devices can also be managed via our central management platform, Vigor ACS, which I'll be talking about later on, and I'll be going through that in a bit more detail. Moving on to the far right-hand side, I'll be moving on to our enterprise level routers, which are the Vigor 2962 and the Vigor 3912, which is our multi-WAN enterprise level router, which allows for more than 2 WAN interfaces. So you can have up to three WAN connections and allow that to be set up on any of the different ports which it is capable on. It allows for speeds of up to 2.5 gigabit per second plus, and include, for example, the 3912S, which is our newest model of the 3912, has also a 256 gigabyte SSD and allows for Linux Docker applications to be installed onto it. I'll go in a little bit more depth on that later on. Moving down to our SOHO and modem products, these are more for your small offices, home offices, or even So if you want to use it at home for a business use, or you have like a small office of up to 5 people, roughly like around 5 people, it would be a great use for these range of products. So we have the Vigor 2763, which is our single WAN router, which allows for VDSL and ADSL2. This device comes in a wireless and non-wireless model, allowing for you to, if you don't need Wi-Fi, and then you want to connect one of our DrayTek access points to it, you can allow that as well. They are compatible. It is a Wi-Fi 5 router and allows for that. Moving on, we also have the Vigor 167, which is our VDSL modem, which is MCT approved and is really as simple as plug and play. Connects to like most UK DSL connections without requiring a configuration. Nearly all like of the like hole in the wall, like those holes in the wall that you plug into, you'll just connect that to the Vigor 167 via the DSL connection, and then you can connect it via the gigabit LAN port to any of our routers, including like the 2962 and 3912, for example. So it allows for that as well. Moving on to one of our newest Soho products, the Vigor 2136AX, which allows for that 2.5 gigabit Ethernet WAN port connection. This is our new FTTP router and comes in an AX3000 model. The key reason for this is that we need a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet connection like via the WAN port. As Peter mentioned earlier, currently 1 gig isn't cutting it, and we do need to start upgrading and increasing our speeds. So 2.5 gigabit Ethernet is the current way to go forward. So at DrayTek, we try to make the naming schemes for all the product codes as simple as possible. So we have where it says Vigor, that's just the name of the DrayTek lines. The 2865 or for example, 2763 is the actual model number itself. And then we have these suffixes, which is like the V, the VAC, the LAC. So I'll just explain that quickly. So if it has a VoIP connection with it with the RJ11 ports, then it will have a V at the end as a suffix. If it's an LTE router, then it will have an L suffix. If it has an L and a 5G, then it is then it is a LTE 5G connection. For example, the 2865 LAX 5G or the non-wireless version, the 2865L 5G would be a good example of that. Any of our Wi-Fi 5 routers, for example, the 2763 AC, would have an AC suffix at the end of it, just to match that 802.11 AC. And then for Wi-Fi 6, it would be similar to the AC, where instead of AC, it would just say AX at the end of it. So just talking about some of the DrayTek interfaces and the way that a DrayTek product actually looks. So for example, here we have a 2865. So on the left-hand side, we can see the LED status indicators showcasing different things like the WAN2, whether quality of service is activated, whether the DSL is activated, or even the 2.4 wireless LAN gigahertz or 5 gigahertz wireless LAN as well. We also have a USB 2.0 port allowing for syslog or even a USB dongle to be connected to it and allow for that as well to be connected and act as a failover for the WAN as well. Another thing we also have is as mentioned earlier, the 2865 has a dual WAN setup with the one FTTP connection and then one DSL connection. So we have the 1 gigabit RJ45 LAN and WAN combo port. So this can be switched to act as a 6th LAN port. And then we have the 5 1 gigabit RJ45 LAN ports, the VDSL2 and ADSL2 RJ11 port on the far right hand side. And then that image on the far right is actually the back of the router, where it showcases the dual SIM slots on the LTE models and the 4 LTE antennas which can be connected to it on the 5G models, and the 2 wireless antennas which can be connected on the back with the AX models. So a reason why you may want failover is just to keep that WAN constantly active. As Peter said, it is one of our key features that our DrayTek routers have. If you have a main connection and for whatever reason it drops, whether it be due to the ISP or someone's just unplugged the cable, but you still need that active connection, it will immediately switch over to that LTE connection with the 4G, 5G, or even 3G as well, and allows for that nearly instant connection back online and to allow you to be active and maintain that full connectivity. So talking about 2 of our newest products now, we have the Vigor C410 and C510AX, which is our new 4G, 5G mobile broadband solution router, allowing for that failover as well, as mentioned as well. So this is one of our newest product, which comes in a wall desk form factor. So this can be wall mounted as well. It comes with 4 gigabit LAN ports and is an AX3000 model router, and comes in with 4 VPN tunnels, and is also, again, as mentioned earlier, is compatible with Vigor ACS as well, which is our central management platform. So talking just a bit more about our 5G routers. So roughly our 5G speeds are 2.4 gigabits per second down, as well as 900 megabits per second up. Again, for example, the 2865 has the VDSL and FTTP, as well as the 5G connection as well. So you can either have that either in a standalone way or non-standalone and have it as a failover. For example, say you want to set it standalone, the downlink would be 2.4 gigabits per second, and then the uplink would be 900 megabits per second, as mentioned earlier. Or for non-standalone, it would be 2.8 gigabits per second downlink, and then a 555 megabits per second uplink. So this router can also come in Wi-Fi 6 AX3000 or just a non-wireless model with the 2865L 5G, as we can see on the image on the right-hand side. Also compatible with ACS and 3G, 4G, and 5G compatible as well. So talking about the enterprise level router, which I mentioned earlier, the Vigor 3912. So this is our strongest DrayTek router by far, with a 8 gigabit DDR4 RAM memory, as well as a NAT performance of up to 12.5 gigabits per second, which in comparison to the previous model, the 3912, is a 3.5 gigabits per second increase. So it is a much higher performance compared to before. And in terms of IPsec performance, it can now reach up to 5 gigabits per second on IPsec VPN tunnels. And it also, as mentioned earlier, the 3912S, as we can see on the table, has a 256 gigabyte SSD, which, as mentioned, is for Linux Docker, Vigor Connect, which is one of our local central management platforms. So this will be on the LAN side, which I'll talk about in depth further, and can either be installed onto the Vigor 3912S to manage your switches and access points, or alternatively can be installed onto your computer as well. It also comes in with a built-in intrusion detection system as well, with the SSD application on Linux Docker, and allows for that full management of what is going on, what is going through the network, and allows for all of that security as well. Handing it back over to Peter just to talk about DrayTek switches and access points.
Thank you, Sami. Thanks for covering the router section there. So looking at the switches overall in terms of a feature set, there are hundreds in the range. I talk about this a lot with partners. Everything that we do is around function, feature sets, security and reliability. And we fill those needs within the range of products that we have. So obviously we have PoE switches, PoE plus switches, PoE plus switches, because that technology is developing all the time. And we talk about external access points, maybe we talk about Wi-Fi 7 and connectivity, maybe we talk about luminaires, office luminaires will be coming through that can be powered by PoE, and for that you need a greater current pull through. With options of up to 10 gig switching capability and the multi-gig. I mentioned this earlier, this is the multi-gig. So yes, you can still run your ports at 1 gig, but the multi-gig allows us to deploy 2.5 gig across ports on the switches, which you'll see shortly. Unmanaged layer 2 and layer 2 plus features on some of the range with some pretty hefty power budgets of 400 watts. SFPs that you would expect, and stacking. So November last year, we released 2 new products, both 24 port, 1 gig switches, one PoE, one non-PoE. They were the G2282X and the P2282X. Apologies for all the model numbers, but for all those partners on the call, you'll know these products very well. You can now stack these products, a maximum of 4 units where you will have one master and 3 slave units. And what's the benefit of stacking? It just means that when you're managing the switches, you're managing the switches as one logical device. That's how the management console sees it. So you're not logging into individual switches. Of course, as you would expect, quality of service on the switches and can be managed via Viga Connect or ACS. Let's look at some of the products that entered the range this year and some of the products that are coming during Q3. So around February, we introduced the Q60X. Small form factor, 5 2.5 gig ports on there. So we're into multi-gig territory with a 10 gig SFP plus uplink. There's no fan, and it's an unmanaged switch. It's easy to deploy. And if you had a 2136, for example, which has a 2.5 gig LAN, you can now connect that to the Q60 and expand that out to one of our latest access points, a 2.5 gig powered PoE AP905 or a NAS. I'm sure you've got other devices within your client's estate that are potentially running multi-gig 2.5 gig. Everybody will be aware of a product called the P1282X. It was released some time ago. So what's the difference? We've now got the P1281. Is it a step back? No. This is us listening to the partner base. So whilst we had the P1282, very popular, 24 1 gig ports, PoE plus ports, 4 10 gig uplinks, we've reduced the power budget and we've taken out the fan. So it's a fanless 24 port 1 gig switch with 4 10 gig uplinks. And that's why the power budget is slightly reduced. But you get some of the enhanced features such as on VIF, where the switch can take snapshots of what's going on in the IP CCTV environment, and you get some other advanced features such as conflict detection, spanning tree, link aggregation, all that you would expect. So just because there's no fan and it's a lower power budget, the same enhanced features that are available on the P1282 are available on the P1281. Moving forward, and I said earlier that the multi-gig products will become more apparent as we get into this presentation. This is the PQ2300XB. I know, more acronyms. The P stands for PoE, the Q stands for multi-gig, and the X stands for the 10 gig SFP uplinks. Pretty sure the B is backup, but we'll get on to that. So what do you get in the PQ2300? It's multi-gig, so yes, it will operate at 1 gig if you need it to. But basically, there are 24 2.5 gig ports on there. And there are 6 10 gig SFP plus ports for uplinks back to other switches or back to the servers. And what's interesting about this, I mean, we've always had PoE on all ports. We've not sold products where we've said, here's 16 ports, but the first 5 are PoE only. But there is a subtle difference in this. The first 8 ports of this switch are PoE++. So if you've got devices that really need some current to power them, then your first 8 ports on the switch will be able to do this. The other 18 ports are PoE+. So you've got a choice there. You've got a power budget, 400 watts, 90 watts per port, and it's a layer 2 plus switch. So you've got some of the layer 3 characteristics such as inter-VLAN routing. And if your primary power supply goes down, there's also a backup with 2 DC power sockets on the back. Also coming in Q3, we've already seen the Q60, which was 5-port non-PoE multi-gig. This is the PQ1070X, just like before. P's PoE, the Q's multi-gig, the X is 10 gig uplinks. So this time we've got 5 ports, but they're PoE. Total budget 75 watts and 2 SFP plus 10 gig uplinks to minimize bottlenecks and 65 gig switch capacity. From a real world perspective, again, using the 2136 as an example, you could take that 2.5 gig LAN connection to the switch and then power 2.5 gig access points. Yes, you can also power 1 gig access points, but what we're saying is we're trying to reduce the bottlenecks. If you look at the average person's laptop or desktop client, multiple applications, multiple video conferencing services, large file sizes, we need to reduce those bottlenecks. And it's fine that the access points go faster, but what's sitting in the background? The next product to come is the PQ1100X. So we've had 5-port non-PoE multi-gig, 5-port PoE multi-gig, and now 8-port PoE multi-gig. So 8 2.5 gig ports, 2 SFP plus connections, compact form factor, total power budget, 120 watts. Again, it's taking that connectivity, that extension capability, certainly, and I can think about now conversations I have with partners around installing mesh, multiple access points, multiple handsets. How do we get it there? We may be able to run a cable, but we can't run 5 or 6. What are we going to do? And these switches are really going to help in terms of deployment of these new multi-gig estates. And all of these products will come during Q3. Then as we get into Q4, there will be other things happening. Access points, one of my favorite subjects. Did you know, anecdotally, that wireless N is now over 15 years old? And I remember this because I remember Sunday night on QVC trying to sell wireless N routers to an audience that potentially did not understand it. It's a great experience. My point is that the Wi-Fi standards are around for a long time. So we've gone from wireless N, wireless AC, Wi-Fi 5, and we still have products in the range because there's still demand for it. And then Wi-Fi 6. So the vendors have always produced products slightly ahead of client capability, but the standards and the length of time that Wi-Fi technology is around is considerable. So Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 access points up to 2.2 gig Wi-Fi speed. So of course, you're going to need that multi-gig capability in the background. Yes, the access points can be meshed, but number one question I get asked about the access points, yes, they can be meshed in a group, but you can also use them standalone, and you can also use them as repeaters. They have the LAN ports on there, so you can power them by a PoE. What I said before is we don't have hundreds of access points, but the access points that we have are for specific purposes. We even have external access points that are ruggedized with multi-directional aerials and directional aerials, and can be powered by PoE and PoE Plus, dependent upon the current that's required. And they can be managed through the DrayTek Router app, Viga Connect, the DrayTek Wireless app, or through ACS. So you can now manage your access points, your switches, and your routers all through ACS, one pane of glass. Some of the new entrants this year, the Viga AP805. This arrived, I think it was February. New form factor for us, cylinder type access point. Great if you've got some dead spots in the office. You can use this in a mesh configuration. It's AX3000 Wi-Fi 6, and you can have this in a mesh with 8 other access points. And we'll come on to the meshing and the compatibility a little bit later. AP905 released last month. Yes, it looks like a product called the AP903. It also looks like a product called the AP906. That's because this is the eventual replacement. Now, the AP903 has been around for a very long time. I've been in DrayTek for 5 years, and it was there when I joined. And partners love it, and then customers love it. It's Wi-Fi 5. So those two products continue to sell, and we will migrate over time to the AP905. But you're not losing any of the functionality that you enjoyed with the 903 and the 906. In fact, it just gets better. So as previously, wall, desk form factor, AX3000, and yes, it has the 4-port switch on the side of the unit, and it has multi-gig connectivity. So it's PoE, and you can now power it using one of the multi-gig switches. So again, we've got that flow right through the estate, 2.5 gig and multi-gig connectivity. Looking at one of the access points in a bit more detail, we've already mentioned you can mesh up to 8 access points. The access points are PoE with the exception of the 805, and roaming. This is one of the feature sets of mesh. Ever been in a building where you've moved from one side to the other and you've had to re-authenticate? So with mesh, you don't need to do this. The access point knows where you are and will hand off to the next available access point, so you don't have to re-authenticate. That's where the roaming comes from. From a security perspective, we're at WPA3, and you can run multiple networks over the different radios on the access points. The slide that we just showed was the AP962. I guess entry-level SMB, low enterprise access point. As we get into the higher side of SMB and early enterprise, we look at products like the AP1062, which has a metal backplane to disperse heat. It's a high performance access point, and this has that multi-gig 2.5 gigabit port on there. And of course, it has roaming, multiple SSID over mesh, and everything else that goes with mesh. But you can see already the way that the range is transitioning, and it'd be interesting to see where we move to next. I said earlier we would talk about the compatibility between different routers and access points, and then I guess access points by themselves, meshing by themselves. So we're going to look at 2 examples. So top left hand side, we've got the 2136AX. This is the 2.5 gig WAN and LAN access point that meshes with the 905, 805, 1062 and 962, which is the latest set of releases from an access point perspective. Moving to the bottom, 2763AC, still a really popular product, Wi-Fi 5. That meshes with the 1060, 960, the external AP 918 and the 912, and the 903. And this mesh configuration allows all the devices to talk to each other. You've got this fast roaming, you've got WPA3 encryption, you've got a complete mesh over the business. However, for it to work, a bit like the old days of managed wireless, you need a route, you need a controller. And so in this example, the router is the route. It's the controller. It's talking to the access point. It knows what's going on. And that's where you will make your changes to mesh. However, the access points can also be their own mesh. So God forbid you didn't have a DrayTek router, but if you didn't, maybe your ISP supplied you with a router, then you can actually use the access points to create their own mesh. So the access point itself becomes the route, it becomes the controller, and then you add the other access points in there. And just like the previous example, start with the top, the AP905, the latest release last month. As you would expect with being newly released, it works with the 805, 1062, 962, and 906. And you can mix that estate, they'll all be meshed. And it's really useful for those partners and end customers on the call that have tried to implement mesh over the years with wireless backhaul, cable backhaul. It's great to see everything in one place, so you know that when you're specifying mesh for an end customer or the partner's customers, you know what is going to mesh with what. So that switches and access points, and now handing back to Sami to cover off central management.
Thank you, Peter. So we currently have 4 forms of central management within the DrayTek range. So we have 2 forms of router-based central management, which is installed into the router and is the central switch management and the AP management as well. So this allows for up to 30 switches or 50 APs and allows you to just basically manage the routers just from a local view via the web UI on the router itself. As mentioned earlier, we also have Vital Connect, which is an application which can be stored onto your PC or even the 3912S and allows you to manage your switches and access points with up to 100 nodes. So either 100 APs or even like 70 APs and 30 switches, for example. and allows for all of that to be managed in a centralized view, allowing for provisioning, monitoring, and a bunch of other features which are included within Vigor Connect as well. Moving on to our cloud management, we have Vigor ACS, which allows for the full DrayTek range to be managed from one pane of glass in any location on any modern browser. So this includes routers, switches, access points, and even the modems like the Vigor 167 or the Vigor 130. That can also be managed via Vigor ACS as well. It allows for, as mentioned earlier, provisioning as well as monitoring. So allows for logs to be viewed via remotely, so you can see any changes which were made to the router itself. We also have a centralized hierarchy view, so you can see where what devices is connected to what router, for example, so you can see which APs are connected to this router, for example, or you can see just that full clarity of the entire network through Vigor ACS. There are also alarms for if a WAN drops or if a device reboots for whatever reason, or even if a VPN loses connection. You can see all of that information, and you can receive in-app notifications, SMS notifications, or even email notifications as well. You can also reboot the devices remotely, as well as schedule maintenance, for example, doing firmware upgrades, and you can schedule the time that you want the firmware upgrade to be done remotely as well. Reports can also be generated based off of different features, for example, SD-WAN features such as the actual WAN quality, which I'll be talking more about in a bit, and you can get that full information. So the way that it works is the DrayTek routers have a feature with ACS called the TRO69 protocol. So it allows for the device to communicate to ACS using this protocol. And even if you have any devices behind NAT or even carrier grade NAT, so if they use a LTE SIM as their primary WAN, that can also be used to access Vigor ACS as well through the Stun server, and also allows for all of the information from the device to just be transmitted to the ACS server, even if the device is behind NAT or carrier grade NAT. As mentioned earlier, this can be also accessed on any modern browser on any device, so allows for that full management from any location through a single pane of glass. Currently at DrayTek UK, we provide two forms of Vigor ACS. We either provide the self-hosted version, so that would be giving you the license to host the server yourself on your own site, and you would be able to host it as well as setting up the server yourself. So this allows for different features like improved security, as well as potential reselling opportunities, which allows for just a broad range of opportunity as well, and also allows you to have full access to the system parameters and features built into Vigor ACS, including the built-in API. We also provide a cloud premium option where we will host it and we will manage the actual server itself. So if anything goes wrong, then you can just come to us and we'll be able to assist with the server issues or anything like that. So yeah, as it says, no installation is required, no dedicated server is required. You will just insert all the information onto the device, and then it will automatically upload onto Vigor ACS and load up into Vigor ACS, and then it can be managed remotely. So talking about MOS and quality of service, so MOS is the mean opinion score, which is part of our SD-WAN. So the mean opinion score is a perceived score of quality based off of latency, jitter, and packet loss. It allows you to basically view the quality of each WAN interface, every VoIP call, even the VPN tunnels as well. So you can view all of that information as well just through the SD-WAN dashboard, which I'll showcase on the next slide now. So here's what the SD-WAN dashboard would look like. So this is just a view for the entire network. So you can see each WAN interface. You can see for example, on the left-hand side, the 5 active WANs. You can see that 4 of them are wired. 1 of them set up as a USB. And while there's no current active wireless WAN, you can also view the wireless WAN quality over the last 30 days. So whenever there was one active over the last 30 days, you can view what was the quality of that, when did it drop in quality? You can view that entire trend, and we can even view the IPsec VPN tunnel quality, as well as the VoIP quality for each call as well. So we can see how many active calls were going on over the last hour, for example, on the far right on that little graph, and we can also see the quality at the top as well as the MOS compliancy. So how does this benefit you? Well, Vigor ACS is a robust, high-caliber core technology which allows you to manage your entire DrayTek estate, and even allows you to set up bespoke firmware, allows for bespoke firmware to be set up through us, and allows you to even meet the nichest of requirements, and can even allow you to set up configurations for every specific device that you want, or say you want to push a specific configuration out to every device. Instead of having to go on site, you can just do it through Vigor ACS. Allows for that easy, simple management. It is a world-class network management platform, and honestly allows for such ease of use as well, and is very easy to use. And we have a lot of guides explaining how to do certain things, or you can even contact any of our engineers and we'll be able to even provide you some assistance with setting up anything as well. So some more benefits: allows for that proactive management as well as reducing the cost of ownership. So you don't need to, for example, you don't need to send out a man in the van, like it reduces the amount of man in the van callouts, reduces the amount of time people are going onto site and just kind of having to troubleshoot on site and travel for hours on end. So it allows for that full information, allows for that full ease of use there, as well as compressing rollout timescales as well and making it easier to complete full rollouts. So I'll just be handing it back over to Peter to talk about the summary and to finish it off.
Thanks, Sami. Interesting thing about ACS, whether you are managing 10 devices or 10,000 devices, it's the same system. So I guess you can grow within the system. Look at National Lottery. They're managing up to 55,000 devices through the same system. So really, and I hope what's come over today, you can see we've got a true end-to-end solution. We're moving in terms of technology of multi-gig and connectivity. The range has been upgraded. The quality of the product is first and foremost priority number one to DrayTek. Therein lies a reduction in support costs. And there are no hardware licensing fees. There's no fees for switching on specific feature sets. The device is installed and that is it. Very simple. When you purchase and install DrayTek devices, you get in-life cycle enhancements, so free firmware, security and vulnerability, including the new beta testing program. And technical support is available on all of our products indefinitely, whether it's end of life or end of sale. You get the remote auto configuration with ACS, as Sami said, reducing man in a van visits, reducing rollout timeframes, and simplifying firmware updates, even timing them to a specific time when the office is closed. So rich features, value for money, built, designed by engineers, real competitive solutions without blowing the budget on some alternatives. If you want to reach out to DrayTek, that's not a great picture of me. Thank you, everybody. All our technical engineers based in the UK and Ireland. That's where sales and pre-sales support is available. You can subscribe to DrayTek at draytek.co.uk, or you can follow us on LinkedIn. Now we're going to move to the Q&A session. I'm pleased to say, and I'm sorry for those people, we slightly overstretched the time by 5 minutes, but as you'll appreciate, there's a lot of information to share with you all. So Alex, how are we looking?
Hello, Peter. Hi, I'm Alex. Hopefully you can all hear me. Thank you very much for all of the questions you've asked during the presentation. You're welcome to ask more now. This always ends up with a bombardment of additional questions coming in. So in the text box, you can type a message there. It goes privately to us, and we can use some of those questions to relay that back to the whole audience. I can start by kind of covering some questions now that we've had during the presentation, and so then we can get on and go through some things. So the first question was actually going back, relating to the Peter's history of device. It was a comment that we omitted to mention 75 bits per second acoustic couplers, which I guess in our defences, we were focusing on broadband technologies rather than the narrowband ones. But moving on to another actual question is relating to security and IoT devices. The person noted they're becoming ever more important, and they wondered if we had any comments around security, IoT, and DrayTek products. And I guess it's possibly one I can sort of answer. We do have some plans actually of some stuff that we're going to be announcing relating to some new offerings when it comes to cyber security, IoT protection, and the DrayTek product range. But it's not something we're able to announce now. But do watch this space. So if you sign up for the future webinars, we're going to have another webinar later, which is focused around cybersecurity. And at that point, I think we will have some exciting news relating to some additional offerings that we're going to be offering. Next question is about not for sale units. The questions asked, are there still not for sale routers available for dealers?
Oh, Alex, as in NFR?
Yes, NFR.
Well, it's been a long morning. So yes, they are. If you reach out to your distributor, there's a range of products that are available for NFR. Obviously, NFR means not for resale, but it gives you the opportunity to test and try DrayTek products and then decide from there.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, they're quite good discounts, aren't they, on the units for your own use? It's a great way of testing the functionality. And actually, we did get, I can see a few other questions came in about the same topic as well. Next question is about Wi-Fi 7. Do we have any Wi-Fi 7 APs kind of planned on the roadmap? Do we have an idea about when they might be available? Which I guess possibly is a question I kind of need to answer from the product point of view. Yes. So yeah, what they are, we have products in the pipeline. We think the first one will be launched this year. It depends on timings and shipping, but yeah, we will have some kind of products we'll be able to formally announce around that. So there you can watch this space, and there will be some Wi-Fi 7. The first ones are going to be kind of a ceiling AP format, and then but there will be others in the range as well to meet different form factors as well.
I'm remaining quiet, Alex, because I'm too excited for this. So I'm glad that you answered.
Yes, I realised that. Yeah,
you realised, you could tell.
Thank you. And got another question back to kind of sales related. What's the best way for someone to find out pricing on the products? If someone wanted to get a list of kind of recommended resale prices for the product range, is that something that is available that we can provide?
Yes, if you speak to your distributor where you buy your DrayTek products from, we've got a number of distributors out there, they'll be able to provide you with a price list based upon the kind of quantities that you're looking for. And that also includes being able to purchase heavily discounted pricing for NFR units.
Okay, great, thank you. I see we've got a bunch of Vigo ACS demo requests coming in, so that's great. We will be contacting everyone who leaves their details afterwards to arrange sessions for you. So thank you very much for that. And related to that is a Vigo ACS question. It's possibly one that Sami will be able to cover. So it's about are older products supported on Vigo ACS, and how can someone find out which products are supported? Because I know there's people who've got coming to some of the newer products, but I think this specifically asked about the 2862 model, if that it also works with Vigor ACS?
Yeah, so some of the older products are supported. For example, the 2862, as mentioned, is also supported. On our website, we do have a list of which devices are supported via ACS, and we also have like which firmware version is required to match the most recent version of Vigor ACS as well. So of like which firmware version would be required on the router or the AP, but yeah, older devices can be managed through Vigor ACS.
Yeah, we recommend normally people use the latest, but yeah, it's anything later than the versions listed would be supported by ACS, as Sam has mentioned. And another question, ACS, is someone just wanted to get a bit of clarity on license fees and the differences between the hosted and own hosted, where someone's hosting it themselves, which we refer to as self-hosted ACS. So how does the licensing work for Vigor ACS?
So the licensing for both would be on a per node per year basis, where a router would be considered one node and a switch or an access point would be considered as half of a node. So depending on that, you would purchase as many as you need to. But for self-hosted, you would need a minimum of up to 20 nodes. So that is the minimum requirement. You would need 20 nodes as a minimum for self-hosted. For cloud hosting, you will need a minimum of 5 nodes to purchase. But overall, both licensing fees will roughly be the same. It's a bit cheaper in terms of self-hosting as you have those, or actually, but in the larger scale of things, it's much cheaper when you purchase more nodes. It is much cheaper. If you contact your account manager, they should be able to provide you with again, in the price list, it should also include the pricing for ACS3 as well. So you can contact your account manager and they'll be able to, or distributor, and they'll be able to provide you that price breakdown within the price list. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Sami. Yes, that's great. We now had a question about an ODU, so that's an outdoor unit. So the question is on 5G. Do we have any outdoor units that are currently in portfolio that people can use with 5G?
Not in terms of routers, but we do have the 918R and the 918 RPD, which is an outdoor access point. So if you can connect that to a 5G router, but the 5G router would have to be indoors, but you can connect it to the 918 and then use that 918 as outdoor. But in terms of
yeah, we have so on the 5G as Sam became, we don't have it currently. It's something that is on the roadmap for a product potentially in the future. So that's something that we may have, where you have an external housing where you can actually put the 5G unit outside to get a bit of a better signal. In this specific question someone's asked about putting on the roof. The approach for now is we do have external antennas that you can use. You can connect to the router, but of course that does have some loss. So an outdoor unit is probably going to be preferable in the long run for some installation scenarios. So it's something that's part of our plans, but we just don't have it launched right now. And I think that's, just looking through, I can see a lot of other demo requests, which is great. So I think that covers all the, there was question about slides. Someone's asked if they're going to be able to receive a copy of the slides afterwards.
So the session has been recorded, so you can actually review the slides when that is published. Alex, where do we normally publish the webinars? Is it to our YouTube account or is it on the website?
So we put it on DrayTek HDK.
Okay.
There's a video section on there. So there's a streaming host. We do sometimes put it on the social channels as well. Yeah. But the main place that you can always go to is on DrayTek HDK and look at the video section. You'll be able to see copies of them there. I think an email will have a link to it as well that you'll be able to use. and we do also publish some stuff on the dealer portal. If you log in to DrayTek KDK and log in there, occasionally there are dealer only webinars that we will put on the dealer portal. But I think that's all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Sami. Thanks for everybody joining today. Your support is very much appreciated. If you have any questions or you would like to engage one of our friendly DrayTek account managers, you'll know who they are. By all means, reach out. Other than that, you can email us and we can get a DrayTek account manager to speak to you. But thanks all for the requests for the demos today. We will get back to you and we'll get that set up. But once again, thank you all for your time and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.